Okay, everyone, welcome back to another fantastic episode of And a Rolling. There we go.
We're here.
We did it.
Woo!
Okay. Maddie, what did we see?
We saw Disney's live-action Snow White.
Yep. Why'd we see this?
I was always going to see this.
I wasn't.
I'm a Snow White girl in that, like, when I was very little, I was very into Snow White, and my grandma made me a beautiful handmade costume, and my other grandparents took me to Disney World, and I got to see Snow White in the Electrical Light Parade, and it was very magical. We're going to post pictures on our new Instagram account.
Mm-hmm.
That's at And Rolling Podcast on Instagram, so give us a follow. But I was looking at my AMC app and saw that there was a sweepstakes to get 3 days at Disneyland for free if you were an AMC Stubs A-list member who went to see this movie in the first 3 days it was open.
And we did.
Ta-da!
We did it.
Who knows if we win the sweepstakes, but...
I pray to God we did, because it might make it worth it, in my opinion. Did you... What do you want to summarize really quick? You got like 3 minutes.
Okay, well, obviously it's the story of Snow White.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen that Disney version, then I'm not going to summarize it for you. The only difference is that they like expanded upon Snow White's life in the early days with her parents. They made her like obsessed with apples the whole way through because they used to like cut up the apples and bake them into pies and bring them to the villagers, and they'd sing a song together.
Mm-hmm.
And the queen comes, she's evil, she kills the king, and that's somehow a reveal that happens later on in the movie, even though it's like, yeah, no shit. And then the prince is replaced with a Robin Hood-like character named Jonathan, and he's got like a band of thieves in the woods, and they are with her at different points with the dwarves.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And then like the villagers, the kingdom... peasants band together with Snow White.
Yeah, there's a coup.
There's a coup, and she just tells the evil queen to get out and never return.
Pretty much.
And then they all make apple pies again, and they sing a song.
And Dopey talks.
Yes, importantly, Dopey does talk, and that's like the turning point in the movie, like we can do this because Dopey's brave enough to say something.
I knew that little shit was going to talk the
that,
moment I saw
that
it.
Dopey
I was like,
figure,
I can't do this.
That Dopey figure looked Uncanny Valley like the kid from Polar Express.
No, let's start from that shit. How do you feel about the CGI dwarves, man?
I felt like I could buy everyone but Dopey. Like, they were weird, but I was like, sure, whatever.
Their heads were... their heads
I don't know
were
how they
twice
stand
as big.
I don't know how they stand upright.
I don't understand that. And you know what I think, because everyone was like, why are they doing CGI dwarves? Why don't they just like literally hire like Peter Dinklage and like other and then they throw
and then they had a little person in the band of like merry thieves.
Yes.
Which is so interesting because it implies that like the dwarves that Snow White finds are some like magical other dwarves, but like little people humans still exist in this world too. Like they're somehow like existing at the same time, but very different.
I saw that and I was
funny.
like, you've got to be shitting me. There's no way that just happened.
One of the things that I was like, why are all of the dwarves white? Like, we've added so many like not so many, don't quote me on that, because there really wasn't a ton of diversity, but there was
the black girl.
Yeah, and there were some black men, and then there's Rachel Zegler. And it's just like, why did all the dwarves...
Can we talk about how the queen
I'm still talking.
I know, but the queen hires a black man to kill the princess.
I saw. I was like,
wow.
I was like, colorblind casting. Maybe we didn't think that one through. And then he's like a scapegoat, and he gets put in the dungeon, and he's there for forever.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if the nuances here are really nuancing. We really diverged because I was going to tell a funny story about the dwarves' heads being so big.
Oh, you should say that.
So I have a cousin who will remain unnamed, but when he was little, his head was ginormous, and it was like a thing that everyone would kind of like poke fun at a little bit. And one time when he was older, my aunt was like, yeah, when he was born, I went around and I started closing the lids on the toilets because I was afraid that with his big head, he'd fall in and wouldn't be able to pull himself back up. Shout out to my cousin.
Yes.
He's grown into his head, don't worry.
Yeah. Still funny.
So very
Still
funny.
Yeah.
Very, I visualize it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of the summary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What'd you think?
So I didn't love it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they hit the mark on some stuff and then were like
Yes.
wildly off on others.
Yes.
And so like things that I thought they hit the mark on for the most part was like costuming, but
Mm-hmm.
then when it came to the evil queen and Jonathan, I was like, what are we doing here? Why, like, she's
Yeah.
bedazzled in like the most cheap looking sequins, and like everything else is in this like rich brocade and like very medieval looking or like fairy tale looking fabrics, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's her and she's in like a sequenced dress or like bedazzled dress, and it looked wrong. It looked out of place with the rest of it. And like they kept the shape of her outfit from the original movie, which was interesting, especially
Mm-hmm.
like a bold choice because Gal Gadot is you know, bold choice. I felt like to cover her hair, just because I don't think that's like a look that modern audiences are going to be like, yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
And I
I
do
guess.
feel like they were trying to make her this like sultry, evil, like
Yeah.
character.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and Jonathan's costumes also really irritated me because they didn't look good.
No.
He didn't look good in general. They didn't look good,
That's
and
facts, dude.
I was just like, why? What? It was boring. It was something that you'd see at a Ren fair, but like 15
Yeah.
times over.
Yeah, I know. I thought that the sets were really
The
good.
sets were
Dude,
really good.
they definitely had people who like worked on like the mine ride and stuff come in
Yes.
and were like, "This is what we need to have done" and stuff
Well,
like
and
that. Because I'm like, this is so like if you've been on the Seven Dwarfs mine ride at
Disney World.
Disney World in Magic Kingdom, like this set is that. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
And there is
you
an
know.
extended mine ride scene. Like they show
Yeah.
a lot of the dwarves riding, which I thought was a very like subtle
Mm-hmm.
way of kind of doing promo for their own ride, you know, because like kids are going to see it, they're going to want to ride that ride, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about Jonathan, just the character of Jonathan overall,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was fumbled so bad because I
Yeah.
love a rogue. I love a like slightly like golden heart bad boy kind of character. Love that. He looked terrible. The
Mhm.
person who cut his hair, I think, hated him. He
I
had
would
this
even
like
argue that Rachel Ziegler's hair was not that great.
there were moments where it was fine, and then
Yeah.
there were moments where it was not fine.
Right.
Yeah. He had this like intensely weird 5 o'clock shadow, and she looked. You know, I know that she's in her 20s, but I think that they've aged Snow White up because Snow White canonically is like 14 in the old Disney movie.
Oh yeah.
So they've aged her up, but she's not like she doesn't look like she's a young woman who's got a ton of age under her belt. So he looked very old in comparison to her.
Yeah, I would argue that's true.
And the lighting didn't flatter him. Nothing
No.
flattered him. Why did they name him Jonathan?
I don't know. And like
That'd be like walking up and it's like, oh, here's Sleeping Beauty and her boyfriend Ryan.
right. Yeah, literally.
It's just like, what?
Yeah, it's like that's the name that we picked.
Because I
Like,
believe the original prince's name was, Flavian? No.
Flavian, like
no,
the
it's Florian. That's it.
Florian.
I was like, I just said this earlier this morning. Florian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
that is
that's not a great name either, but at least
But it
it's
makes
like
sense in the
fairy
world.
tale.
right. I think this is my like yeah, I think that and I generally I don't know. I feel like this movie is really tied in a very strange way. Like it wants to be its own Snow White, but it's like bizarrely tied to this like Disney animated 1937 Snow White.
It's one of those things where it's like, what if you had just what if you just called Taylor up? No, but like what if you did what kind of Kenneth Branagh did and take some of the overarching visuals of Cinderella and then like completely transformed it into its own thing.
Right.
That I think maybe is what they should have done, because I didn't
Yes.
think that the additional songs melded well with
No.
the songs that were already written
It
and that they still used.
it was such a high contrast, and I was
Yes.
like, what the fuck is this? And like, one of the things that really frustrates me is like, so they change her wishing well song. It's not a wishing well
Yeah.
song. It's like this whole new thing. And I was like, I actually I like the wishing well song in the context of the movie, and I feel like it sets up a lot of
They
the
they
themes.
still have the wishing well imagery. Like, it's still an
Right.
important component, but they take out that song. They leave in
And
Hi
they
Ho
don't
and the
even
working song.
and they don't even have the call and response in the new song like in the old
Right.
one. And I'm like, what is happening here?
Right. And the songs, also the new songs, they feel very contemporary theater
Yes.
in a way that does not mesh with the other.
Like 1930s, like,
Yeah.
right, like kind of big bandy.
It made me
stage
feel
show
like you
stuff.
needed to get the people who worked on Schmigadoon, because they wrote a
Yeah.
bunch of new songs that still felt like the golden age of Hollywood. And obviously this is
Mhm.
earlier, but at least they were like looking to that time period to create new music, you
Right,
know? And
right.
so I felt like all of those songs were pretty forgettable. They didn't match what I was expecting in terms of, like, if you're going to keep those older songs in, you need to match them on some level, and they were not matched at all.
You know what's crazy? So I was watching TikTok this morning, and there was that song from the Lorax where they're like, "Let it grow, let it grow."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I know that there was a song like that in this movie, and I cannot fucking remember it.
I can't remember a single lick from this movie.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
Besides the original, like, Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work.
right. And no, and the Wishing Well song, I remember, like, right. I'm wishing
Yeah.
for the one I love. Like
Yeah.
that song. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's awesome. And then this one, it's just like, I need to wish
Well,
upon
and
a
also the
thing.
original song is the Someday My Prince Will Come.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's not in this movie.
I saw it in the credits. I think maybe they used the music in like a backing track, perhaps.
Maybe, but then this is the other thing is like Jonathan isn't a prince.
Yeah, and I'm
Which is
okay with that
fine.
change.
Right.
But like,
Well, I feel like there's a whole missing thing because like there's a moment where Doc's like, oh, like they're actors, and I'm like, oh, is he supposed to be acting like a prince? You know what I mean? But like that's never expanded upon, you know? But that's never expanded upon, you know?
yes, yeah, yeah. What was up with Rachel's hair?
I don't know.
Because like you and I feel this way when we've gone to the Disney parks and seen Snow White. I
Mhm.
am like, you could do an interpretation of the hair that doesn't look so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you could easily still interpret the hair,
Mhm.
but do it in a way that doesn't look so awkward.
Yes. Yes. Well, the other thing is it's like
Oh, and I wrote some notes down. Going back to the music.
Mhm.
I suggested last night when I was writing these notes that maybe they needed the Teen Beach Movie singer-songwriters to do the music for Snow White too.
Really?
Because again, they were looking at like a time period.
Right.
And for that it was
right.
like the surf movie, you know, but at least they captured some of that
Mhm. Mhm.
and it was catchy.
Right. How do you feel about the evil queen character in general in this movie?
So I think that the fundamental problem was they were trying to get funny and punny with what fair means.
Oh my God. Don't get me started with the fair bullshit. I was watching this movie and I was like, what do they mean?
Because it means different things for different
Right,
characters.
right.
And like that is inherently a problem when the characters come into conflict over what fair means.
Right.
Because the queen wants to be fair in what it's typically been in this story, which is beautiful. And Snow White, they've put this new emphasis her parents have instilled in her that she needs to be fair, as in like just.
Right. But then the other problem is sometimes the queen will say like, oh, I'm fair, and like she's punishing someone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so does she mean just? Like, what's happening here?
They I think just were like, those things mean two different things and we're going to include both of them. But potentially, you know how like that interview happened and they're like, oh, we're like making it way more feminist and modern. Maybe all along they meant to change the meaning of fair, and with the evil queen they just did it so poorly that like
That's
it's still stuck that she half meant beautiful, and then like in the scenes not with the magic mirror then meant fair, like
well,
just.
that's I think that the fair thing is the entire problem with this fucking movie. Is like the juxtaposition between the 37 and the modern day thing. Like it's all the same thing. It's all this like what the fuck is what do you mean? What do you mean? What's happening?
So
And like that goes beyond fair. I just don't understand.
yeah, I think that this would have been like an interesting book if you were to rewrite Snow White and
Yeah.
really dive into the idea that fair means just.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
you could pull that off a little bit better than the movie. And this is the problem, right? Like, this is kind of what we've talked about with media literacy in general.
Mm-hmm.
The general public have seen that version. It's been around almost as long as, like, anyone around has been alive.
Right.
And so we have preconceived notions that come with that visual
Yeah.
language that we're seeing. And I don't think they did enough to overwrite that.
Right.
And so we're, as an audience, we're bringing in these ideas because we've seen this visual patterns, these visual cues,
Mm-hmm.
meaning something else, and they didn't distinguish it enough.
Right. Right. I agree. No, they didn't distinguish it enough at all, and it's not clear what they meant.
So in that way, I feel like they failed at their
100%.
task.
100%. Yeah. No, it that really irritated me throughout the entire movie. I was like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Do you want to hear something absolutely batshit crazy?
Sure.
This director also directed 500 Days of Summer and The Amazing Spider-Man.
What?
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man's really good. You could argue that 500 Days of Summer is good in a different way, but yeah. That's crazy. And he did this movie is studio glop. You know what I mean? Like there were so many fingers in the pies.
Oh, he's from Bloomington, Indiana.
Is he? You know who else is from Bloomington, Indiana? The
Your
captain
mom.
in Star Trek Voyager. Born in like 2115 or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
Let me look at my notes again.
okay.
Oh, the ending? Let's talk about the ending for a second because
Oh.
the dwarves and Jonathan go out as if they're about to do battle, right? Like they leave the cottage and it's like, we're going to fix this. And they're like
Yes.
with the bandits and they go out. But then the next shot is of Snow White in a brilliant red cape walking through these dingy, like muted palette streets leading up to the castle.
I would argue that that's the best imagery in the movie.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like not subtle at all.
No.
And then you don't really see a battle because the dwarves have like snuck in through an underground
Tunnel.
tunnel. And then the queen comes out to meet Snow White and she tries to get her guards to kill her in front of all of the villagers. And then suddenly the dwarves and like 3 of the bandits are on the balcony
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking down like, we've taken the castle, but you see none of it. It's giving like finders keepers
Yes.
in such an intense, like weird, stupid way.
Right, they're just like, we're here. And like if I was a guard, I'd be like, fuck you.
It
like,
very much is like John Smith, like, I've stepped foot in Virginia. This
right.
is my land.
Right. And like, well, and Snow White like wins the battle by being like, Paul, Matthew.
Yeah. You were a
Eric."
baker.
Yeah.
You had a wife.
Yeah. And he's like, I did have a wife.
And then it shows some random woman in the crowd, and then she's like very proud of him. Like it cuts to this woman twice, and first she's like, "It's me, I'm the wife," and then when he chooses not to kill her, she's like,
Mhm.
"That's right, that's my husband," and
Yes.
it's just like, what?
Okay, there's a couple things that I really find very funny about this movie. Okay, this is what I was going to say about the evil queen. What is up with the apple? The apple is fucking meaningless. The apple is meaningless in this movie. She's like, I'm going to poison Snow White. And then she poisons her. And then Snow White's immediately kissed. And then Snow White still does the coup. And she's just like, oh, she's back. And like, you don't see her in a fit of rage or anything. She's just like, I'm like, why'd you go through all that shit? Why'd you do all of that just to...
She's deeply unsurprised that Snow White has returned.
Right, I know. And I'm like, girl, didn't you like try to have her killed? And then I'm thinking back to the original movie and I'm like, oh, right. Like the dwarves find her and then they brutally murder her by like throwing a rock on her. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Right. And I'm like, and it's like this deep and epic thing and you're upset and the visuals are upset. And it's like, oh, and like you're filled with rage, and the dwarves are filled with rage,
The
and like you
pacing
don't
on
see that in
the
this.
the pacing of this movie was so off.
Right.
Because we spend a pretty big chunk of time with Snow White and her parents establishing that she's going to be fair in the just
And
sense.
just and
like they have to explain away why she's not pale as snow.
yeah, they do.
Like
They do.
why she's called Snow White if she's not
She was
white.
born in a snowstorm. That's the context.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then okay, so there's this moment where the queen sends the huntsman off to kill her. And it's like, take her to the woods, let her pick her precious apples, and then cut out her heart and bring it back. And what's so interesting, in a bad way, interesting derogatory, is that she picks like 3 apples, and the huntsman's like, go. Like there's no suspense. There's no building where Snow White might like that would have been a great moment where Snow White starts to realize that something's wrong and start to be like, I think we should go home now. I think we should go home now. And he's like, you shouldn't go home. You know, and like really build some like dread. And I get that it's a kids movie, but like dread light, you know?
Well, but then I think that this is the problem with Snow White's character too. But keep going with what you're saying, and then I'll jump in.
Well, and then they recreated that scary forest scene from the 37 movie, which like that's a great sequence. I've got no problems with that.
Right.
But it felt so abrupt.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way that most of these.
Yeah, I feel like they were like, we need to fit these things in, and like we have to do it. You know what I mean? And like if they don't do it, then there's a problem. And like I think that this is the problem with Snow White's character is it's like there's a brief moment where she starts to realize that something's wrong, but in the animated movie it's established that like she is young, she is very innocent, she doesn't know anything really. You know what I mean? And like that's established in her character. And in this one, he's like, I'm going to kill you. And she's like, no, I'm going to stand up to that. But in the 37 movie, she's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And it's just through his like mercy by seeing her like, so like, oh my God, that, you know, he has like, you know what I mean? I'm saying like there's a bizarre, like this is not Snow White and the 7 Dwarves. This is Snow White. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Because in the original 37 movie, it's Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. This is just Disney Snow White. These are 2 very different movies and 2 very different characters, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, the characterization of Snow White is very, very different.
Right.
And I think that they were trying to, you know, a lot has changed for women since 37 came out.
Right.
And they've also aged her up, so the expectation of how much autonomy, how much, you know, like passion and perseverance she should have is different.
Right. I agree with you. I'm saying that
I don't think they did it well.
Right. I agree with you. I'm just saying that like that conflicts with what they're trying to do by paying homage to the 37 movie at the same time. It doesn't make sense. You know? That's all I'm saying.
I think that this movie sort of sits there along with others, especially the live actions.
Yeah.
Where it's like this is a cash grab.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't remember if Cinderella did all that well. And so then they started doing these like shot for shot remakes, just making the characters a little more palatable to today's audience.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing it by committee. I don't know how much autonomy these like the director or the writer
I don't think they have really any
has over this project.
Right.
And so you get sort of these soulless adaptations. And it's really sad. I mean,
can we talk about really quick, well, the 2 people in our audience, the little girl and then the other people really quick? Yeah, because we're talking like about soulless adaptations, but that little girl loved this movie.
Yeah.
I will give them credit
and
there.
That's good.
That's good.
That's their audience, right?
Yeah.
Their audience is not you and me.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, it's these little girls. But what was the scene? What was the scene where so there was this like the only like real battle scene where like the bandits and the guards
Queen's
fight
guard.
in the forest, and there's a guard who has a crossbow, and he's like comes up from behind a tree and is like going to shoot Snow White
And
with this crossbow.
you basically see a shot of Snow White in his crosshairs.
Yeah.
And this little girl to our right goes, "Oh no."
Yeah, she's like, "Oh no."
It was so cute.
It was really funny.
Meanwhile, the last like 30 minutes of the movie, some teens were clearly theater hopping,
Yeah.
and they decided to sit near us, and they start having a conversation full volume out loud.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
I I said I actually finally was like, guys, this isn't a place to talk.
yeah, annoying. Annoying.
And that they said sorry, which I was
Did
kind
they
of
really?
Yeah, the girl was like sorry,
I didn't
but
hear
then they
that.
continued to like whisper
I
and use
know.
their phone,
I'm
which is
like,
just
why are
like,
you here? Why are you here? I know.
I do wish that instead of having to go all the way out to get a staff member, there was just like a button somewhere in the
Yeah.
room that you could like press if there was an issue,
Right.
kind of like a train.
Right. Or if there was, I know this would be way too expensive and they would never do this, but like just have a staff member in there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, they used to have
For what?
to run the projector.
Oh, yeah.
And like obviously they're
Yeah.
not in, but they're like they can still observe the theater.
Right. Exactly. Right. And I'm like, come on. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what was probably the best line in this movie
Yeah.
was when
So after that sequence, Jonathan takes the arrow for Snow White. It hits him in his right shoulder.
yeah.
And they rush him to Doc, and Doc's like, I'm a geologist.
Yeah, he's
And
like, I
Snow
don't know
White's-
anything.
Snow White's like, you have to help him. And so they're all waiting outside, and Doc comes out and his hat's in his hands or something, and he's like, well, I did this, and I hit the core, and I found the like he's talking all in rock terms,
Yeah.
and it clearly like he's really upset and like something went very wrong.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Jonathan comes out of nowhere and is like, that was really unpleasant. And Doc looks at his other dwarf friends and goes, I thought he was dead.
Yeah, that was a bit. He's like, Doc really thinks he did. He really killed this man. Like he was like, oh no. Like, yeah, that was the best part of the.
That actually
of the
got
movie.
us really, really good.
Yeah, I was like, that is
we
funny.
laughed pretty hard at that.
That is funny, but yeah, that's.
Okay, going back to the evil queen.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think Gal Gadot did a shit job, by the way. Like
Oh.
absolute trash.
Yeah.
Oh my god, atrocious. But go
I
ahead.
want to know who they hired to sing for her.
Ooh.
Because I could tell she did some of it, but like there were some notes, like big ending notes, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's not you, girl.
Mm-mm.
No way is that you.
No.
But they gave her a bunch of magic. Like before, she was really just able to do potions.
Yeah.
And this time she's able to like conjure things. They also
Yeah.
made it that the kingdom really relied on jewels from the mine.
This kingdom is suffering from a bad case of Dutch disease. Like real bad.
Explain.
Okay. So Dutch disease is like when countries get really rich off of one specific resource, for example, oil, it becomes like their entire economy and like everything's dependent upon it, and it leads to like high levels of corruption and like an overdependence upon this material.
What were the Dutch dependent upon?
It was rubber, I think, in the
Oh.
East Indies. I
I
think
was gonna
is
say
what it was.
tulips. It's the only thing I know about.
They are, yes, in a sense. But yeah, that's the big thing. Like, so like Guyana just found like a bunch of oil and everything, and they're like, oh, like they could suffer from Dutch disease if they don't distribute this right. And like it's like I was like, oh, so the Snow White is this movie. This kingdom is like, imagine what were to happen in Botswana if Botswana didn't come to terms before they found their diamonds about how to govern their land with like by splitting up between the three tribes. Like that's this movie, and like it's bad. Like that's what's happening in this movie, and I'm like, this is fascinating. And Doc slightly points it out during. Like when he's talking about the actors, he's like, "Oh well, due to the socioeconomic climate of blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Dude, what is happening?" Like, you know,
They mine like in the earlier scenes. You just see baskets upon baskets of like polished, pretty large
gems.
gemstones.
Yes,
And like they've got the dwarves are mining for themselves. So I am like, where are the other mines?
Uh,
Who is mining?
Okay, this brings into a lot of question because like this is my thing is like they expand upon like the dwarves have like a magic hand
Yeah, that's true.
that allows them to like see the gems, I guess.
And I saw a TikTok where it was like, yeah, they're added lore about the dwarves, and then it never comes up again.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then but then it brings into question because they bring up this stuff and because they don't establish like because it's so much more grounded.
Where is their money?
Where's their money? Why do they go to work? Like
I think for the love of the game.
I
They're
I
in there
am like
for the love of the
I
game.
know, I am like, dude, these guys just love to dig.
They love to
Like-
dig. They love their little pickaxes. Dopey loves to put gems in his eyes and kind of walk around fucking things up.
Are we racially stereotyping these dwarves? Like, is that what's happening here? It's like dwarves just love to mine in like every fantasy scene, so we're just gonna let them mine again, like just mine.
Oh.
Like
First I was like, who are the dwarves racially representing?
the dwarves are
But
racially
you just
representing
mean, like,
themselves.
yeah,
Like we're
like
just stereotyping dwarves. That's all
dwarves.
that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
mean,
okay, like because in the original movie, like yeah, they're in the mine, but like it doesn't like that's just an excuse.
they weren't coming up with that much in the mine.
Right.
They had a pretty nice operation. Oh, the other thing we find out about the dwarves is that they are at least 249 years old.
Yeah, and like, why does that matter? And she's like 249. Like, that's shocking information to her. And then that doesn't. It's
Yeah,
just like, okay.
I thought, oh, maybe they'd be like, oh, we know the evil queen. She's an enchantress from blah, 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 and we know how to stop her. We've been hiding from her for 239 years, you know? something
Right?
like
Yeah.
that.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah, and she's like, my parents always told me this was a magical place, and I'm like, oh, did they meet her parents? Nothing about that's brought
I
up.
am wondering
Like-
if stuff got cut that would have like tied that all together nicely. But then I'm like, is that just me being generous and this actually is just a very disjointed narrative?
There was something that happened where someone said, oh, she said this once, and I was like, I don't remember her saying that, and I think it was because it was a cut line from before that they kept in later, and I was like, what the fuck? Because like they were like, oh, remember when Snow White did this? And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I never saw that.
Snow White did what?
I don't remember. I cannot remember the specific thing that they were talking about.
Useless.
I know. Well, it's hard to remember this movie because it's very forgettable. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Oh. So, anyways.
I guess here's where I'm landing. Do your live action, have fun, make pretty costumes. I'm glad they made real sets. I am.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch, if you stay for the end credits, they have a bunch of like carpenters and painters and like second unit film
We were sitting there
makers.
and I was like, Jesus Christ, a lot of people worked on this fucking movie.
And that's great. Go and see it in theaters for that reason, if nothing else.
Sure.
But like make these actors have chemistry, make them look good. Like
Yeah.
I'm a little embarrassed.
Oh my
honestly.
God. The way that they made Rachel sing, like the way that her mouth moved, I was like,
So,
ooh.
I've always kind
ah.
of noticed her lower jaw will jut out sometimes
Yeah,
when
she'd be
she's
like,
like holding a long
Yeah.
note. It was very noticeable
Yes.
in this.
And like her mouth gets really wide, and I'm like, oh my God.
I mean,
like,
and that's in part good technique. The jaw jutting was more interesting to me.
it's very confusing because like in Hunger Games, it works. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
There's like I will say, oh, there I go. That's my catchphrase.
I will say,
I will say, well, and you're like, I would argue.
I also say that's fair a lot. Have
Yeah.
you noticed that? Like,
Yeah.
I've been editing and I'm like, oh man, I say that all the time.
So this is something we've been listening back to the episodes,
Yeah.
and we're like nitpicking ourselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this. Excuse me.
Yeah, don't tap on the wire.
Those are my glasses.
Oh.
Anyway, I think this is probably my least favorite movie role that I've seen her in.
Yeah.
Lucy Gray is number one, and I
Yeah.
think her physicality there really matched
Yeah.
the character,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I felt that here.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Maria is number two, so this is like number three and last place.
Oh yeah, I forgot she was Maria. She does a fine job as Maria.
I think she did a great job as Maria.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't particularly fond of West Side Story in general, but
And see, I did like West Side Story.
yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that I think that she acts well in this movie.
Yeah, I just it felt a little mismatched. But I
Yeah,
think again that's because we're coming with this preconceived notion like we've watched Snow White as kids. You know, I don't know.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen her in parades and like all this stuff and not that cuz actually the Snow White, like the Disney Snow White
Mm-hmm.
with the little high voice, it can
Hey.
get pretty grating.
Oh my God, guys! When we were in, okay, there's a restaurant in Wilderness Lodge called Artist's Point, okay, in Disney World, and you can meet Snow White, Doc, Dopey, and the Evil Queen at this restaurant. It's the only place that you can meet like the Evil Queen or something. And Snow White came around to our table, petrifying.
Cuz it's like this like 22-year-old woman
Yeah,
and she's talking like this.
yeah.
Hi everybody. It's
That's
like that.
actually that's crazy good. That was crazy good.
And then she'll be like, "Oh, we have princes and princesses." Oh, and you're just like,
Whoa,
"Okay,
you could
yeah."
be Snow White.
Oh yeah. Give me a little fuck ass Bob.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, but it's like it's terrifying. And then yeah, this one I'm like,
It's
oh,
very unsettling, and you are like, blink twice if you need help.
yeah, I am like, can we normalize Snow White's voice? Like,
Like
that's all I want.
it can still be high pitched, but maybe it's like this instead of that super high, like trying to be
Yes,
Mickey Mouse type voice.
yes.
Mm.
Oh
The
man,
30s were a different time.
30s were wild. I do like how they kept some of the dark stuff in this movie from the original.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think they could have maybe even made it darker. I wrote to
yeah.
myself that it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I think of the live adaptations of Snow White that have come out while I've been alive. So that'd be like Mirror Mirror, Snow White and the Huntsman, and this one. I think Mirror Mirror is my preferred.
I don't know if
And
I.
that's crazy because Army Hammer plays the prince.
Ooh.
Now granted I haven't gone back to watch it since the whole Army Hammer
Mm-hmm.
cannibal scandal.
Yeah.
So that might impact me, but I actually think that Lily Collins is a really good Snow White. And Julia Roberts is the
Sure.
evil queen in that.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to Snow White and the Huntsman where it's Kristen Stewart is Snow White and it's a Hemsworth brother?
Sure.
Is it Chris? Chris Hemsworth
I don't remember.
is the huntsman, I think, and
Yeah.
then Charlize Theron is the evil queen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that one was crazy. So, pop culture note. That is crazy because the director of Snow White and the Huntsman is the man that Kristen Stewart was caught cheating on Rob Pattinson with.
Really?
Yeah, in that car.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Very important, pivotal pop culture moment.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's really I mean, that's all I got for this movie really.
What
Like
would
this
you rate it?
fuck. Like a 3.
Yeah.
Like it's like the sets are good, but like and the costumes are good. But that's really like that's it.
I
you
think
know?
I can agree with that.
Yeah, like I hated the look of the dwarves. The story didn't make a damn bit of fucking sense. Um, it's it has a conflicted personality like the whole time. I don't get it. I just don't get this movie. I really don't get it. What would you rate?
No, I think 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Wasn't it supposed to come out much earlier?
I think so. And then wasn't there like
But
well,
I'm not really clear on what happened to make it release later.
I don't know. I thought there were some production issues with this movie, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. So, oh, I thought that like what they did with Dopey's character was stupid shit.
It was cringy,
It was
to be
so
honest.
cringe. It was cringe with Dopey, and like, well, it's so funny because in the scene where like in the scene where they find Snow White and then Dopey gets locked out from everyone else, like in the animated movie, that scene is so funny because they're like basically encouraging this like child. It'd be like, you got this, man, you got this, and like everyone else is really scared and Dopey's like freaking out, but like they do things with the animation to exaggerate it and make it funny. And like I feel like that's a really interesting thing that they can do with animation because Dopey never talks, but they can express him so vividly in the animation that you just can't do in this.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
I kept waiting. Okay, and this is like silly, I guess, but I think one of my favorite parts in the original is when they sit on each other's shoulders to dance with her.
Oh, I was
And
waiting
they
for that.
didn't do that.
I was waiting for it. And you know why I thought they would do it? Because it's at the end of the Seven Dwarfs Mine Ride.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they got to market the shit out of this ride. Like, they're going to be like, oh, we got this thing.
And we still had the dancing scene.
Yes.
And it was the same song, like, and that'll be the opening clip. But I was waiting for them to, because the birds joined in and they put Dopey in this coat and they like bow to each other and it's very cute.
Yeah.
Where was that? Where was that? I wanted that.
Right.
Interestingly, I believe that so Rachel is it Ziegler or
I
Zegler?
think it's Ziegler.
Okay, Rachel Ziegler. She got her part in the Jimmy Awards, I believe. And the guy who voiced Dopey, Andrew whatever, he's also in that movie with Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, so
Andrew Barth Feldman.
Yeah, so the guy who plays Dopey, Andrew Feldman here, he stars in that Jennifer Lawrence movie.
No Hard Feelings.
No Hard Feelings.
And he also got his start on the Jimmy Awards. And
yeah.
he and Renee Rapp. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad with names today. Renee Rapp were in the same year of the Jimmy Awards. They, I believe, won.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a funny little tidbit there. I was talking to my dad this morning before you woke up about the show, and the movie, and he looked up on IMDb, and he loved some of these user review titles, and he really wanted me to read them out.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I think that you'll enjoy this too. So, the rating, by the way, on IMDb is 2.4 out of 10.
I feel like that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one, Snow White 2025, a soulless, unnecessary remake.
Yes.
Poisoned apples all around.
Okay.
Another bad apple in an already spoiled bunch.
Oh, hey-oh.
Hold on. Hey ho, or sorry, let's redo that one. Hi ho, don't go.
Ooh. Ooh.
Fair but stale.
Ooh.
A very mirrored movie with too many mixed messages.
That's actually very accurate. Yeah.
Bad apple with terrible acting. Rooting for the apple.
That's what
Sleepy, dopey, and now I'm grumpy.
Ooh.
This person gave it a 7 and said, not as bad as people think. A fairy tale fiasco of epic proportions.
Hey, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. I feel like that's accurate.
Rooting for the apple.
Rooting for the apple is that's hilarious. Like that is a fire title for a review. No, I mean, yeah, this movie just kind of happens. So, and
I think the other thing that's so hard, right? Like, I actually think that if this had come out before Wicked, it could have maybe been carried on the sets and the costumes, with the exclusion of the Queen, because I really didn't like her costumes, But because it's in the aftermath of Wicked, where we had incredible sets, we had incredible costumes, we had additions that made sense within the story.
Yeah.
And we had great vocals from almost everyone. Sorry, Michelle. Love you, Michelle.
Yeah.
It just, like, falls flat because we've got such a recent smash hit that's really doing everything that they did, but better and, like, good in the first place.
Yeah. You know what I think the problem with this movie is in the trailers for this movie, we saw the trailer for the live-action Lilo and Stitch, which I had seen before, but I was like, wow, that looks so much better.
They took away cross-dressing Pleakley.
Yeah, I know.
I'm actually really devastated. So I am a Lilo and Stitch kid. I wouldn't say, like, there's a lot of, like, Disney adults, and we both very strongly feel like we do not qualify as Disney adults. We're, like, Disney adult adjacent in that we have a Disney adult in our life, but we are not on their level.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Bridget.
Let's just name drop.
But I think that like there's a lot of Disney adults that are really into Stitch.
Yeah.
And I just as a kid loved the movie. So I am excited for this movie, but I'm worried because that movie was like very tightly crafted, and if you
Yeah.
change too much, I think it's going to fall apart.
Well, but it seems like they're not really changing that much in the trailer,
I will
which
say,
is good. Like I watched the trailer and I'm
there
like,
I go
oh
again.
yeah. What?
I said I will say.
Oh.
Shoot me. Take me out back. Apple.
Yeah.
uh, I think that the songs, because they were using Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride, and I
Mhm.
think that that's still the same recording as the original one. So it's got the original children's choir on it, because that sounded exactly the same.
It might be. It could totally be the same.
Yeah.
Because it's such an iconic song.
Well, and it's not that old.
No, it's really not. 2001, right? I think that's when the movie came out.
Maybe.
Well,
But,
because
like-
they had to edit out the Twin Towers.
Right.
Yeah. How could we forget?
Where do they have the Twin Towers?
So when in the last scene where they're in the spaceships and they're like flying through Hawaii, and like there's like a starfighter battle,
Yeah.
that originally was supposed to be like around the world, and like the Twin Towers like flew by in the background, and they edited it out after 9/11. You can still find like original clips with it.
I'm going to look that up.
You
Yeah,
can look it up right now.
I am. Oh, you're almost right.
What?
The chase's backdrop shifted from a cityscape where the plane narrowly avoided buildings to
Yes.
a lush Hawaiian mountain range.
Right.
But they didn't actually show the Twin Towers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's a big plot point because it happens in Hawaii, and I was like, wait, I don't think they ever like go to New York.
Okay. No, I know. Yeah, but they I was
No,
like,
this
they
I
changed
remember
it.
from the behind the scenes footage. As you know, I watch all of the behind the scenes.
I know. Yes. So, yeah. No, I get you. there.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'll give you like an 8 out of 10 on that one.
What the fuck?
Well, a pretty big significant point was that it didn't happen.
The
in New
point
York.
is it was
wasn't
edited
the
out.
Twin Towers.
Oh. Okay. Fine. You got me.
I did.
Yeah. But yeah, shout out to Deus Ex, by the way. I always have to bring in a video game. Shout out to Deus Ex for predicting 9/11. Really crazy in that. So
Produced by Saddam Hussein.
there's a video game called Deus Ex, and they ran out of rendering memory to render the Twin Towers in New York, so they said that there was a terrorist attack in 2001 that blew them up, and this was like back in like 95 or something.
That's like that book that predicted the Titanic before
Really?
the Titanic sunk.
No
yeah,
way.
there was this book that was published, and the ship name was the Titan.
Okay.
And it was kind of like the same thing. Like it was supposed to be unsinkable, all this
Mhm.
stuff, and it hits an iceberg.
Yeah.
I think it even has it like in April, and it
That's
goes
so
down.
funny. Yeah.
And it was published like 12 years, or maybe like 15, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
before the Titanic sank.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. Well, you learn something every day.
yeah.
It's a bizarre coincidence, I suppose.
Glitch in the Matrix.
It is a glitch in the Matrix.
Twice, 2 times over.
Whoa. Crazy.
Did anyone have Notre Dame burning?
I know that, well, when Notre Dame did burn down, I know that people were watching Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they were like, oh, Frollo's right, he's going to burn down this whole city. I was hearing that a lot.
Boo.
Yeah.
Now that is some Disney adult ass take.
Yeah. I was hearing that a lot. But that's the only thing that I can think of. I'm sure that Notre Dame has burnt down in a book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just because
Now it would be crazy if Notre Dame burned down in a book and they found 2 lead coffins.
that would be
that
wild.
that would be like, whoa.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a great live action.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Well, especially like it's got the beautiful play of the musical.
I know.
We saw that. We saw a high school production of that, and
Guys,
it was incredible.
whoa.
Like they
Oh.
had rented. Now, granted, this was very much like a uppity high school. Like
Rich
they
people.
they had a lot of money.
Yeah.
This high school actually went viral for a time on TikTok because they
Yeah.
were like, "This is our natatorium. This is our auditorium. This is our podcast studio. This is our blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah." They have like everything. They have a marquee inside, like lit up.
Yeah, like you go in
showing
and you're
their
like, oh,
theater.
this is a theater. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we went and they had like rented like a semi-professional set for Notre Dame, and they did a great job.
It was so funny because I was watching, like, when we first got there and I was looking at that set and I was like, there is no way some parents made this. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, right.
I was like.
This was just a class.
Yeah,
the tech kids were doing on the side.
Yeah.
No, and he would like the guy who played Quasimodo would like fly from section to section. I mean, it was intense.
They actually had like a whole bunch of stuff.
And then the next year they did Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which was much worse.
Well, in a sense. I mean,
In almost every sense.
well, the prince was not great.
And the set sucked.
Yeah.
The only crazy thing
Shout out
was
the guy, Micah. Micah, if you're listening.
Micah from Carmel, Indiana.
Micah from Carmel, Indiana.
You went to Berkeley, I think. Berkeley Music School.
I thought he went to Oklahoma.
Did he?
I don't know.
Oklahoma is a good
Point is,
musical
there's
theater
some
school.
guy named Micah out there.
And we
Dude.
are fans.
Yeah, I am like,
We
I really
think that
hope I
you are
see you on
great.
Broadway.
Yeah, we
Like,
want to know when you
oh.
make your debut. We'll be there,
Yeah.
and we'll be like, "Oh, we remember when you were Quasimodo.
Yeah.
You've
Like,
never met us, but we've like
I've been following you. Like,
okay. Calm down.
oh my God, not in like the stalking way, like in the like I follow celebrities sort of way, you know?
Yeah, you are a celebrity to
Yeah,
us,
God damn.
and we missed you in Cinderella.
Yeah. Yes.
We
Very
were going
true.
thinking that everyone was going to be like you, and we were let down.
Yeah, the set was great though.
The Fairy Godmother was good.
Fairy Godmother.
The set was not that great for Cinderella.
The carriage was good.
The carriage,
What?
just the carriage.
Oh, I thought. I thought it was okay.
Not compared to Hunchback. That's
Okay,
what I'm
God
saying.
damn, dude. You know, yeah. Fine. You got me.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we're big fans of Micah.
Yeah. Shout out Micah.
We think you're going far, kid.
I think he will. There's no way that he won't. Like, dude, the way that he sang out there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was
Music
like,
to
oh,
my ears.
this is incredible. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's Snow White. If you want to see it, sure. I don't recommend it, but you know, whatever. It's your life. I'm not gonna tell you what to do.
Have you seen all the live actions?
No.
Not the like Lion Kings, like the princess ones.
No. I'm trying to think of another one. I feel like I've seen one of them, and I was like, this sucks. But
Beauty and the Beast, maybe.
no.
Because I went to see Ariel by myself,
Yeah, you saw Little Mermaid.
and I think that's my favorite.
My sister saw Beauty and the Beast, and I've heard the additional songs in Beauty and the Beast and stuff.
Those were mostly just from the stage adaptation too.
Really? That
Mhm.
explains so much, and it's why it fit in the goddamn
Right.
context.
Like those, I think that those songs were good. I also
Right.
thought that the songs for Little Mermaid, with the exception of Scuttlebutt,
Scuttlebutt
oh,
with
I guess
Aquamarine, right? Is that
Aquafina.
Aquafina? We should-
Aquamarine is the
we should do a
beloved children's movie.
Yes, we should do a podcast on Aquamarine, the movie.
We should. I have
That'd be funny.
lots to say.
Well, I mean, I've seen Monte Carlo now.
Yeah, you have.
2 times.
Matt watched Monte Carlo with my sister twice.
Yeah, and the rest of your family too.
Well, I was only there for once.
Yeah, well, you know, I was there for both times. It was, yeah.
Anyway, it was just with the excluding the Scuttlebutt, I really liked like the Prince's song added to Little Mermaid,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that bringing back Alan Menken was a great choice.
What?
He did the music. He and Lin-Manuel Miranda did the songs.
Oh,
For
I didn't realize that.
yeah, they brought him back.
Wait, isn't he dead though?
Howard Ashman.
Howard's dead.
Yeah, Howard.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Alan Menken is
Alan Menken's still alive. That's right. Okay. Gotcha. I know there is something going on there, but
There is actually a great documentary about Howard Ashman.
yeah, what's it called? Waking Sleeping Beauty.
No, babe, that's just about He's in that documentary, but
Yeah.
that's more about the Disney Animated Studios. No, there's just one
Oh
called
yeah.
Howard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really kind of, if you're interested in Howard Ashman, he was a young lyricist,
Mhm.
and he did Beauty and the Beast, he did Little Mermaid, he did Little Shop of Horrors.
That's what he was known for.
Yeah, and then he kind of transitioned from Little Shop of Horrors and like big Broadway musicals over into Disney animated films.
Yeah.
And so he died of AIDS
Yeah.
while Sleeping Beauty was under production, but he intentionally
No. You mean
not Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. Yeah.
He died of AIDS while Beauty and the Beast was under production, and he intentionally crafted that story to be sort of an AIDS narrative. So the Beast is othered in this way.
Yeah.
How he felt kind of being both a gay man and then also having AIDS.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting lens to like look at his work through. And the same with kind of Little Mermaid. He was the first to put in an I Want song.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what part of your that is what part of your world is. It's the main character expressing all of her desires.
Yeah.
And the part of your world has also been kind of said like that's how Howard viewed himself as a gay man, of like wanting to be a part, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be an integral part of society when he sometimes didn't feel like he was.
Yeah. And apparently his presentation when he like went to Disney and was like, this is what I want to do for the songs and stuff, was like very involved, and like he like wore a costume and everything and was like really into it.
He sounds like a great guy. Like truly one of those like tragic losses.
I know. I am like, what would Disney of animation have become?
I mean,
not like the last half of the Renaissance era was bad, but I'm just like, oh, what would have become in the future beyond the Renaissance era?
Well,
you know what I
think
mean?
even not looking at Disney, the Broadway musicals that I'm sure he would have worked on. I mean, it's again like, and this is one of my areas of special interest, but the tremendous loss from the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah. It's true.
So anyway, it's a great documentary. Waking Sleeping Beauty is good too, and there is a good section on Howard in that documentary.
There is, yeah. Waking Sleeping Beauty. You can find both of them on Disney, and I'm shocked that Waking Sleeping Beauty is on Disney Plus.
They're very critical.
Yeah, they're literally like they shit on Disney quite a bit, and I'm like, whoa, like it's kind of wild, but a great documentary. You should watch it.
Entertaining, for sure.
Like it was one of those documentaries where you're like, I'm gonna put this on, but then like halfway through, you're like, I'm actually very engrossed. Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever want to hear about how the Black Cauldron almost like knocked out Disney Animation Studios.
Yeah.
Just by the sheer fact of being terrible and expensive.
Yeah.
They go into some detail.
Yeah, because the CEO is like, we need to release this movie. We're gonna edit it, and they're like, you can't edit an animated movie, and he was like, fucking watch me. Like he was like,
Yeah.
It was hilarious. It's like, okay.
Anyway, okay, so something that I have been thinking about that I wanted to talk about is the, like, I guess the moral or like the way that she governs, the way that the parents govern, and then the way that she governs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your typical monarchy, which makes it very complicated, and I felt like it ended up being that we were just watching communism.
Yeah, in a really weird way, it was like a I don't know, but it was still like a monarchical system.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like she didn't have, besides the title and like getting to live in the castle, there wasn't any inherent benefit initially. You know, like everyone seemed to be having enough to live on.
Yeah.
Like in that opening sequence, there wasn't poverty. It was just that like two people seemed to be in charge and figureheaded the country, but then they like just the way that she spoke about how she wanted to govern, it was giving like Communist Manifesto.
This it almost sounds like it's almost like the society that Plato has in the Republic, where it's like the philosopher kings. You know, like she's a philosopher king by heritage, not because of like anything else, but like because she's so smart and her family is so smart in how they rule.
Well, it's because they're like fair, honest, true.
Right. There's like valued
whatever that other one,
and like thought out positions, and like therefore it's just for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's also this idea that, you know, back when Disney was starting, we had a really defined sense of democracy, but we also
Yeah.
had some really clear examples of monarchy. Like we weren't that far away from true
Well,
like
and
monarchs across, not just like the British monarchy, because
yeah.
that's kind of what we think of today, and
Yeah.
they're very figureheaded. But we had more examples of like monarchs playing a role in geopolitics, like
Statecraft,
the
right.
Kaiser and everything.
Right.
And so it just is interesting that we're trying to imbue this story that comes from a time where monarchs were absolute powers
Yeah.
with kind of democratic thinking, and what you end up with is this like weird like benevolent dictator communism.
Yeah. Well, it's like the what am I thinking? There's the like it's funny because it's almost like the monarchy in this is like Saudi Arabia's monarchy. Like this is what I'm talking about with like the Dutch disease thing, where it was like cuz like Saudi Arabia's entire economy is oil. It's all oil. And like this country's economy is all gems. But like everyone has so much wealth from it that like without like and as long as like the monarchy generally speaking like stays the fuck out of it and just gives money back to people, like everyone's happy. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
this. Like that's the reflection. Like their idea of monarchy today is that. Like that's monarchy.
Yeah, it's this really confused situation.
Right.
And I thought that that was really funny.
It's super funny. It's super weird.
The other
Honestly.
thing, going back to the songs,
Mhm.
I think I've pinpointed as we've been talking, like thinking about what really irked me about them. They didn't sound in line with what's already there, but they sounded like they were meant for a parade at the Disney parks. They had
Mm.
that kind of vocal that like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the chorus vocal and
It's
like
like a
the
nighttime show.
or even a daytime. Like
Yeah.
it just that's what it sounds like.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound like they made this cinematic thing. It sounds theme park.
Yeah. Yeah. It is one of those things where I'm like I don't know. It this movie didn't need to exist. I feel like it had been in the works for a while, like we were talking about.
I feel like they couldn't back out.
Right. And I'm kind of like I get what Bob Iger's trying to do where he's like we just need to get this shit out, you know, and just recuperate any money that we can on it. But I am like at what point do you just take the loss and like you know the measly millions of dollars that you're gonna get? They probably won't make a profit on this movie.
Instead of diluting the brand.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting thought. I mean, again, it just
because this is my thing is it's like oh well if the movie costs 360 million to make but it makes 300 then we've only lost 60. You know what I mean? So like we can write that off as only a $60 million loss instead of a $300 million loss.
well the other
And I'm
thing
like,
the other thing about like the live actions, like the really heavily CG'd ones,
yeah.
like the Lion King, that's not going to age well. Like in 10
No.
years, the kids aren't going to want to watch that because it's going to look funky.
Right. Like that's the thing is like stylistically like the reason that the animations work is because
It's a cohesive world that you're able to buy into right from the
Right.
get-go.
Right. Exactly.
But if
Yeah.
if like the landscapes look really real, but then suddenly we've got an uncanny valley
Mhm.
lion situation, kids aren't going to want to watch that. But I do think it's interesting that I don't know about you, but there were some movies when I was a little kid that I saw and maybe saw only a couple times or only once.
Yeah.
And it felt like a fever dream trying to remember those details. And so I have wondered if the kids now are going to see the animation and see the live action and get those really confused and feel very like feverishly about those in the future.
Yeah, well, it does. I am kind of like, I mean, obviously, like, kids will watch, like, more modern stuff. Like, that's just the way that it works. Like, everyone will watch more modern things. But I am like, there's so many movies, like, because I feel like post, like, anything from, like, the 60s onward, there's, like, a solid, like, filmmaking is now established, you know? And it's like people have kind of figured it out. And I'm like, I am like people will go back and like watch those like there's movies from the 80s that we're probably going to show our kids,
Well, I was gonna
and it's like,
say,
are they like, there's such a difference in the style and like quality in the way that like CGI has moved on. I'm like, what's that going to look like?
well, and I think it. Excuse me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think it also depends on caregivers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you and I, we had a significant portion of caregiving done by our grandparents. So, for example, for
Right.
me, I watched a ton of Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music,
Yeah.
and
I think I've seen almost every Shirley Temple movie.
yeah,
just
I was gonna say I watched a
because.
lot of Shirley
Yeah.
Temple too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sort of like it depends on, I think, who the caregivers are, and then what
Yeah.
feels childlike to you. But to that end, I don't think people in our generation, just because a live action Avatar The Last Airbender exists, are going to show that to their kids over the animation. I think the source material will win
Yeah.
out because you're and this is where I think the Cinderella by Kenneth Branagh can actually exist in the same world and have the same amount of like pull, not the, I don't know about the same amount of pull, but have like a heftier pull
Mm.
because it took the source material and it made it totally different. And so the people who like Cinderella the live action don't like it for the same reasons of Cinderella the animated movie. They exist very differently. And
Sure.
so I think you could have kids watch both of those equally. But I think
Yeah.
that like, yeah, if you're a mom now or a dad now, you're going to go to the source material, not the shitty
Right.
live action.
Right. Well, and yeah, because I know that there's different types of Cinderellas. Like I was talking to Tyler about this.
Oh, well, there's the Brandy
Yeah.
Cinderella, and that's
Yeah.
a masterpiece.
Right. And like
And that's Rodgers and Hammerstein.
right, exactly. And like that's where it's like he was talking about it and I was like, What are you talking about? Cuz I only know the Disney one. You know what I mean?
You're talking about Tyler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like he was talking about it and at first I was like, I
I
don't
loved
know.
that one as a kid.
Yeah, see, I just
That
never
was
knew it
magical.
existed. Right.
That's crazy to me.
I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, and well, and like it's kind of weird because like I know the story of the Princess and the Pauper, but now like my definitive version is sadly the Barbie Princess and the Pauper.
I think you mean fortunately for you. It's
Yeah.
Princess and the Pauper. Although
Yeah, sorry.
there used to be as if it doesn't exist anymore. There's also a Mickey Mouse version of the Prince and the Pauper, and I watched that growing up, and
Oh,
then I
man.
saw
I feel like you're
Barbie's Princess and the Pauper. Well, I am
Mhm.
right.
right. I know you're right. I'm just like I'm feeling like I've seen this. Is
Yeah.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Mickey and Mickey, kind of in the same vein of the Mickey Three Musketeers, the Mouseketeers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Me and Haley and Allie and the cousins, we watched that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Actually, so recently Matt and I went to see an opera, and they're singing songs in the opera that I primarily know through the Mickey Three Musketeers movie.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Those are in that movie?
They have a segment where the evil guy is trying to kidnap Minnie. Pete is trying to
Yeah.
kidnap Minnie at the opera, and so they just show these little snippets of opera songs.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, I've seen that movie, but I think I only saw it like once when it came out.
Oh yeah, we watched it a lot.
Yeah, no, I've only seen it like one time. Yeah, interesting. Well, so
Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Trying to post some
Yeah.
stuff, and we'll post some pictures of me as a Snow White fan, as a wee child.
a wee lad,
I wasn't a lad.
lass. Okay.
Try again.
It's not a pomegranate. Try again. The vote in the poll.
Yeah, we'll see what the poll is.
Yeah,
we'll figure that out.
I don't know what the poll will be, but and then tell us who you think is the most relatable dwarf. I guess comment.
Yeah, I'm #sleepy.
Yeah, dude. I feel like the older I get, the more sleepy I am.
Yeah, you're a mix of sleepy and grumpy.
Yeah, that's facts. That's
Yeah.
very true.
I think I can also
So.
be that, but then I'm also let's be real, I'm sneezy and sleepy.
Oh my god. No, that's so
I'm a
true.
sneezer, guys. I
Guys,
sneeze a
No,
lot.
and she'll like rub her nose when she's going to sleep after she sneezes, and I'm like, like,
Yeah, I have a lot of allergies. Me and Sneezy, we got a lot in common.
yes. But yeah, comment. Let us know what you think. Have you seen Snow White? any version. What do you think about Snow White? It's pretty cool. I wonder what they're gonna do for the 100th anniversary.
Oh boy.
What? That's a great outro. It's pretty great. So, okay. See you guys. Bye.